Hi, everyone, and thanks for hopping in and checking out this thing that I'm doing. I'm doing a thing. There's a thing that I'm doing. Um, I'm starting a new KSP story. Well, career or not career, because career sucks. Um, a science playthrough. Um, and I'm starting this one out in a weird way in that I'm trying to see how far I can get without ever leaving the ground, if that makes any sense. Um, Obviously, many of the science experiments in Kerbal Space Program require you to go to other planets or moons and do science to get points to unlock things in the tech tree. But I'm trying to figure out if it's possible to completely unlock the tech tree without ever leaving the ground or building a rocket per se. Uh, I have a feeling I'll probably end up having to do that, but uh, as you can see, I already kind of realized here, like if I have to do 4 EVA reports and 4 surface samples, I might as well just make a ship that holds 4 pods so that I can get all 4 in one go. Because initially, the idea is that like just at the launch pads, just at the runways, you can do an EVA report, a surface sample, and a crew report, and get like a good chunk of science just from not moving and just doing that initial bit of science in those areas. I was messing with different designs, like the one that you just saw didn't work because like the doorway was blocked, so no one could go to EVA. And so this one, I kind of like made sure that nothing was clipping in a too terrible way that they wouldn't be able to get out of their pods. Then like this was a proof that it kind of worked. Got a bunch of science on that one. Haven't left yet. Haven't left the surface yet, and got about 35 science or something like that. So then I went through all the different places you can do that, the runways, the launch pads at every single base, and the island airfield as well, and just did those 3 reports, the EVA surface sample and crew report. Um, yeah, the desert. I always forget about the desert runway, or the whole desert area. Uh, so yeah, with that little bit of science that we just gained, I bought a couple things on the tech tree. I bought the thermometer, the mystery goo, and I think that was it for right now. And I'm setting up the action groups, so anytime I start, that's right, I got the antennas too, which aren't necessarily needed right now because pretty much every mission or every time I'm uh, running the science experiments, I'm collecting the vessels. So antennas are kind of pointless right now, but um, yep. So just going through each place now that I had the thermometer, and now I'm using that science to buy more. Got about 70 science now. Still haven't launched a rocket yet. That unlocked the barometer, or like the pressure meter, and I'm just placing that. And I'm placing everything in 4s because it takes, for most things, it takes about 4 times running the experiment to fully get all the science out of it. Plus, there's 4 Kerbals that you start with, so it only makes sense that they should do all of their science together and stay together forever. Got a Science Junior and some science experiment storage, which just to make sure covering all the bases of all the different science possibilities. Because each time I'm adding a new part or unlocking a new part on the tech tree, I'm going back through to each possible launch location and then adding that device to this pod and rerunning all the experiments again and just like squeezing the last little bit of science out of it. So at this point, I thought I had gotten everything I could get without moving. And so I was going to make a base. I was going to like make a roving base that my initial plan was to drop like surface experiments, like the Kerbals get out and they get down on the ground, and you can place like a solar panel or other experiments, whatever, on the ground. And I was thinking I was going to get science that way. So I was loading the ship up with a bunch of like EVA packs and central control unit packs to start like a ground base. That's why I was like messing with this service bay here, because I was planning on like making this thing stationary potentially. But then I was trying to figure out how am I going to get it to its final stationary location. Got to add some wheels. But then if I really truly want it to be stationary, then, well, the wheels need to be detachable. So I made the wheels detachable. In the end, all of this was for nothing because I had kind of a stupid realization later, which it makes sense. And I think I already knew about this, but I just wasn't thinking, and I did it anyways. So I was just testing this out, driving it around. It performed terribly and kind of sucked. But if you can get it to slow down a little bit, this is all time warped and the footage is sped up too, but if you can get it to go slow enough, then it won't crash and you can turn and like all the stuff I'm doing here. So I was just going to plop this down and have this be a little permanent base like right about here. And I popped the wheels off and then I ran the science and I realized it was giving me fresh science for each location in the Space Center. So then I realized what I needed to do was to drive around to each individual building in the Space Center and run experiments there. And there's going to be a lot more science that I can get out of that. So just adding some batteries so I can drive around a little bit more than I was. The wheels are placed poorly, but they get the job done enough for me to get around where I need to get around. Just scraping up some science from this walkway here. Or not the walkway, but I forget what it's called. It's where they, in real life, run the rockets from the assembly bay out to, the launch pad. I'm realizing at this moment that the way that I designed the wheels was just not great. So I was going to put this whole thing on a frame and hopefully have a little bit better control so I can drive it around a little bit easier, since I have to, when this isn't sped up, the actual footage of it driving is very slow. It's not a very fast vehicle. And if you go too fast, the wheels explode. So it's not ideal. It's not an ideal setup. Hopefully this is temporary though, because if enough science can be unlocked, which I probably already have enough at this point, can unlock some better wheels. And I mean, really, if I'm going to try to get as much science out of Kerbin as I can, oh, I messed up there, without actually taking off, gonna have to drive around probably a lot or make boats. But I do want to see how far can it go. without ever building a rocket? Is that blasphemy? I don't know what was going on here. I was like trying to control it, but it was freaking out. But this was like the first real successful test of being able to drive around a little bit easier. So I'm headed over to the tracking station here to do the process, all the science experiments. Got to stop the car, get everyone out of it, run EVA reports, and if you didn't know, you can take surface samples as a Kerbal without touching the surface. You can be dangling off the side of a ship. Oh, see, the wheels explode. But this is also a moment when I realized the wheels exploded, I can't go anywhere. So I ran the experiments anyways, and literally just off the little catwalk area there, not catwalk, I forget what it's called, the like runway for the rocket. It's immediately another biome where you can get more science. So just around the launch pad, there's 4 or 5 different biomes that have 30 or 40 science just sitting there. This is the astronaut complex, or no, this is like the mission control area. So like this also has its own little biome where you can run all the same experiments. The runway is another one. Yeah, this thing has some trouble turning sometimes. It like will only turn left but not turn right, and I'm not sure why that is. It's a weird bug that I'm not used to seeing, so I don't know why it does that. I couldn't figure out how to make it stop. It just does it randomly too. So if anybody knows why these wheels only turn one direction, it'd be something interesting to figure out. This is the space plane hangar. Yep. And then I was getting the hang of this down, speeding up on the runway and kind of like moseying my way off the side. And this should be yeah. So you can see how slow and how much how little acceleration and torque this vehicle has, because it can barely make it up these hills when you're watching it in real time. It's just so slow. So I finally made it up there, and then as I'm turning the corner here, the batteries die. But I got lucky because it just went over the edge of where that biome starts. For this is the astronaut complex, I think. And got my science. Got to do it one or two more times at different areas. This is maybe this is the astronaut complex. I just think every single one of them's the astronaut complex, and I can't remember. One of them's the administrative building. The one that we were just at was the administrative building, or maybe I'm getting them mixed up. But footage is going by too fast. I can't tell what it was anymore, and I forget. Even though, oh, yeah, the wheels explode. Gotta always remember, wheels explode randomly, especially if you're time warping. This is definitely the research center. So this is like the last one, the last little zone at the KSC that has some science waiting to be gathered. And then there was one last thing to do naturally, and that is to go check out the monument. I forget when they added this into the game. I wish it, like, if they can do biomes for, maybe I'm missing something, but if they can do biomes for all the different buildings at the KSC, I feel like coming out here and just like looking at this thing should have its own little, should be the squad biome, I suppose. But yeah, there's no science here in this area. However, if you time warp on and off really fast, your vehicle will bounce up and down on the ground, and technically I got some science for flying over Kerbal shores, even though I never left the ground. I don't know if that's technically going against everything I've already said, but also looking at that little broken spaceship inside that hangar gets you like a little, it's like a hidden message note that gets sent to the KSC when you go back to it. It'll tell you like you found a piece of an old rocket somewhere. So there's like all these little hidden Easter egg things around the world that you can find. Took Valentina up to the top of the tower here. She does a little salute, and then we do a little skydiving, a little base jumping. And that's kind of that for this first round. I think I've got about 500 science, so haven't left the ground yet. And technically I haven't left the ground yet. And I've got about 500 science. Oh yeah, last little bit here at the desert, and this is Woomerang. If you go, it blew up. The wheels exploded. Imagine that. The biomes just outside the launch pads also have science, kind of like how right off the runway at the KSC is a biome that you can get science from pretty much right away. Yeah, so final result is 497 science with just a couple things unlocked from the tree. And there's definitely other stuff that can be unlocked to like get more science, but felt like that was good enough for the first run. Anyways, I'm going to be continuing this, making another episode to see how far I can go without ever leaving the ground. And if you're interested, subscribe, hit the bell. See you next time.